Alright, what's up everybody? Today we're gonna do a long, in-depth Roach guide. This is probably like the hardest deck in the game to play right now. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So the win con of the deck is basically setting up for Roach, and that's the only win con. So you play all around this card, and yeah. Um, so some pros and cons of the deck. It's extremely high skill ceiling, and it can contend with all the tier 1 decks, so Sword and Rune, and you know your game plan and win con every single game. But if you don't draw Roach, you lose. Um, if you fight Wardhaven, yeah, that's a con because Wardhaven kind of destroys this deck. It's pretty hard to play. Could be a con, could be a pro, up to you. Um, and it kind of struggles into aggro, like yeah. So keep all those in mind. All right. Here we have calculating Roach lethal. Basically, X will be the number of roaches you play. Y is the number of cards played before you play Roach, and basically you multiply the number of roaches you play times the number of cards you play before Roach, and then you add Z, which is if it's the minimum damage if you only play Roach, Roach plus Roach. So it would be 1 plus 2 if it's 2 roaches, and then +3 would be 6. So it's 6 if it's 3 roaches, and that pretty much equals the damage. And then you add the carbuncle evil chip damage, um, Cairn buff, and stuff like that separately. And a good tip here is not to end your turn like before your lethal turn, and then you can calculate if you have lethal next turn. So yeah, we will go through some examples near the end for practice. All right, so here is the core cards of the deck. Technically, you could drop Guardians Alert down to 2. We'll go through this later, but these are 39 cards. Roach is pretty much solved. So yeah, like these are 39 cards. I highly suggest you run these 39 cards. And yeah. I guess we could go through them all. So you have your fairy generators, fairy convo, and fairy tamer. They're used to establish board and start most of your combos. May and ambush are used for board control. Bug alert is a combo card. You can use it to in a lot of ways. Bounce Roach, bounce Karen. There's a lot of ways to use bug alert. You could just use it as a 2 damage clear as well. And then you have Lily as a board clear, as well as a way to draw some extra cards. Guardians of Lair is a way to manage your hand size because you can use unwanted cards into it, and it's also a draw tool, of course. Carbuncle is pretty much your best super evil in the deck. It adds a lot of damage to your roach turns. Karen and Bale are your 0 cost cards. So yeah, you kind of the goal of the deck is you want to like gather your 0 cost cards and set up for Roach lethal. And yeah, Glade is to clear board and draw, and Godwood is pretty much your infinite draw engine, as well as a way to bounce Roach, so you can play 2 roaches in a turn. And yeah, all right. So here are your flex cards. There's only one flex slot, but you can fit quite a lot in there. So firstly, I have Twin Blade Goblin. This is the version I'm currently on. I don't know if it's the best. So it's pretty much a weaker good Fairy of the Pawn early game. Fairy of the Pawn is the best like early game tech here. But it's also pretty useful in the late game, so it's more flexible than Good Fairy of the Pawn. It's more useful on the Carbuncle turn because it pretty much removes a unit for you because it does 4 damage when you have a Seevo target or when you have a Seevo unit on board. So yeah, um, I like it because it's a little more flexible than Good Fairy of the Pawn because like if you draw it late game, it's pretty good. Good Fairy of the Pawn, you can like you can use it early game. It's pretty good into sword if you want to tech into the sword matchup. Um, but yeah, I don't like it because it can lead to some clunky hands later in the game. Oh, also keep in mind you can remove one Guardian's Allure for an extra flex slot if you want to run 2 of these cards, or if you want to like run 2 Good Fairy of the Pawn. That's very common. Fairy Fencer. This card is good into the sword matchup and worse than Fairy Tamer in every other matchup in my opinion. So if you want to make yourself better into sword and only sword, like maybe a tournament lineup, feel free to drop the Fairy Tamer for a Fairy Fencer. Fairy Fence is also easier to use, but I would not like drop Fairy Tamer because of that. Fairy Tamer is a very, very good card. Um, I think Titania is bad. She's pretty. Her evil's pretty good into Abyss because you you drop a fairy into the Cerberus pool, which is kind of funny. Um, but yeah, Titania is like kind of whatever. Fragrant Wood Whispers is good into Rune. You tech it into Rune because you get an extra zero cost, and that matchup is all about the OTK. We will talk about that matchup later. Aaron, I think this card is a little bit last set. Um, People run it. It's decent into Urius. If you, but you know, not all sword decks run Urius nowadays. So I would not recommend Aaron either. Um, Olivia and Limaga are probably the two best late game cards. Olivia gives 2 guaranteed ship damage pretty much, which is pretty big for Roach, and Limaga is a good answer to Norman, and it can be pretty decent into the Amelia Luminous Magus board that Sword likes to play a lot. Limaga is like pretty good into that because you just lock their Amelia down, and yeah. So there's that. Here's my deck. It's pretty much I just took this image because I was too lazy to get a Twin Blade image, but yeah, so you just add Twin Blade, but like I said, the deck code will be in the description, and you can replace the Twin Blade Goblin with whatever you want, pretty much. All right, Mulligan. So the matchups, this deck has a lot of like matchup dependent mulligans, so we will go over those in the matchup section. But generally, you can keep Glade, you can keep your Fairy Generators for sure. So these two you will keep, Fairy Generators and Glade. You keep your zero cost if you have Fairy Generator and Glade. But if the matchup doesn't require Glade, like if you think you're not building like a big board, you can also just keep the zero cost. So keep that in mind. I would keep Roach if you have three good cards. Like sometimes you lose without drawing Roach. You can keep Roach if you have 3 good cards. Yeah. Keep Bug Alert if exactly Glade, Fairy Generator, and Cairn. Because why is this? Because you want to pretty much Fairy Gen, and then turn 4 you're gonna want to like Fairy Cairn, and then you can Bug Alert to make another zero cost, so you can Bug Alert the Cairn um on a future turn. And yeah. All right, so general game plan here. Early game, you want to play your Fairy Generators and try to build some chip damage. Okay. Chip damage is very good in this deck against most matchups that don't heal very often. Why is this? Well, because you're trying to set up Roach Lethal, so chip damage is very good. Um, yeah. So if you have time to play Godwood Staff, I highly suggest you do it because it's pretty much your infinite draw engine, and you eventually need it if you don't draw 2 Roaches to bounce your Roach without Bug Alert, which is 1 mana. Like 0 mana bounce is obviously better than 1 mana bounce. So yeah. And then I just have some early game combos written here. Um, like Coin Godwood turn 2, and then Convo Fairy is a very common turn 3. Um, Tamer turn 2 into Fairy plus 1 cost turn 3. Like Fairy May, Fairy Ambush. Very, very common. And then double Fairy into Karen turn 4. Another pretty early game common combo there. And basically your goal is to set up as many zero cost cards as you can. So Karen, again, sets up your Deepwood and then bail. And then you want to clear your opponent's board. And that's pretty much it. You just try to respond to your opponent's board, deal some chip damage if possible, and set up your zero cost. Mid game, we want to continue clearing the boards. Wait and Lily are great to do this. If you have, if for some reason, if they don't have a board, you can Roach and poke face with Roach. Make sure you bounce your Roach if you do not have an extra Roach. And you don't do this into stuff like Rune. Well, you could if you want to force Norman's heal. Um, but oftentimes it is more worth to try set up your zero cost instead. in those matchups. And make sure you fuse with the Garden Alert to prevent overdrawing. Like if you have Godwood, you want to make sure you're ending the turn with 7 cards in hand or less, because then if you're not, you're gonna overdraw. Keep in mind, if you already have like your lethal setup, you don't care about overdrawing, right? So make sure you count your lethal. If you don't have lethal, try to fuse and make sure you don't burn stuff. All right, late game. You calculate the Roach lethal and kill. So common patterns. Um, 2-0 cost, Bunko, Bounce, Karen, Blake, Karen plus Deepwood, etc. etc. Um, this is like a double roach combo. And if you have 9 mana, you can triple roach. So you do 9 mana, 0 cost plus Bunko plus 1 cost, plus or 1 cost or 0 cost. So four cards pretty much. If you can play 4 cards before you triple roach, and you have a Karen on board, you can pretty much lethal from there. Yeah, that'll do 20 damage. All right, here we have sword matchup. Yeah, we're going into the matchups. Okay, so if you use Fairy of the Pawn, you can keep Fairy of the Pawn in this matchup. You can kind of keep Fairy of the Pawn in most matchups if you want to. But Fairy of the Pawn is pretty good in the sword matchup, and you can keep Ambush because two damage ping is pretty good. Basically, as we discussed in our sword guide, sword is board, and if you can clear their board, you'll do pretty good. So before there's Zirconia turn, make sure you can clear as much of the board as possible. And if you don't have time to play the staff early, you can play it turn 6 with staff plus fairy plus lily, because staff counts as a combo card, right? So you can go staff, fairy, lily, try to clear their board, and yeah. Usually you can play it on turn 6 because he will glade on turn 5. So you glade turn 5, clear their board, and then you can play it on turn 6 because their board won't be as strong. Does that make sense? Yeah. And you know, I just put 4550. Oh, that is not right. 4550. It's 4555. I'll just bother me. But yeah, it might be Roach favored, but from what I've noticed, like this sword can put in like more cards to win against Roach than Roach can put in to tech into sword, just because of the amount of flex loss that sword has. So I'm putting it at 4555 right now. All right. Against Spellboost Rune, Lily Lily is good if you don't have Glade, because Lily can clear their five drops. So yeah, you'll keep Lily if you don't have Glade. If you do have Glade, you can mulligan one or the other. It doesn't matter. It's up to preference. I would usually keep the Glade over the Lily, but yeah, I would just keep Glade over the Lily because he's good draw as well. So basically, this matchup's all about setting up your Roach OTK, dealing 20 damage on turn 9, because on turn 10 they're gonna enhance Quan, and yeah, your time's up. If they enhance Quan, GG's. GG's. You can't really clear the aura dude, you know. So yeah. Make sure you set up all your 0 cost cards. Keep your 0 cost cards in this matchup. Karen and Bale are really good because of course you need them. You need them. Um, you don't need to keep Carbuncle because Carbuncle doesn't really require setting him up. You just hope to draw one Carbuncle eventually, and you can usually kill them. Yeah. Pressure them early because you want Norman to heal and not play the golems. Golems are annoying. That's pretty much it. Yeah. All right. So in the mirror, I think the mirror is kind of dumb because you're just, if you draw Roach first and you can Roach Evo for chip, like you kind of win the game. But yeah, so you can bounce your Roach, or of course leave it on the board if you have a second Roach. And this matchup's about tempo and trying to gain time in order to Roach Evo them. Um, to prevent yourself from getting Roach Evoed, you try to build a strong board pretty much. Lily's really strong because she's a 1/3. So you don't really have to use Lily's combo in this matchup. You can just use Lily as a 1/3, and she's pretty good. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Just try to set up your lethal ASAP. Like usually you can get them to like 12 or 13 or something, and it's easier to set up lethal from there. All right, Ramp Dragon. I think this matchup's favored, but it can be rough. It can be rough. Like it might actually be 50-50 to be honest. But your mulligan changes if you have a lot of face dragon in your meta. So yeah, make sure make sure your meta is heavily ramp dragon or it's open deck before you do this. But basically, you can mulligan normally, but you keep Godwood if it's ramp dragon. But if the Forte version gets popular, the Forte ramp dragon, make sure you also keep Roach. Why is this? Because if you play Roach on before their turn 6, they cannot play Forte. Because if they play Forte and go face, you can play your Roach is on board. Your like 6 damage Roach is on board, and they're just gonna die. So so yeah, like Roach is good just to prevent the Forte play. Um, Pressure is very important because you need the chip damage. Um, yeah, you kind of need the chip damage because you usually won't be able to OTK them, like set up your OTK in time. So you need the chip damage so you can set up lethal faster than they can ramp into like boards that you cannot handle anymore. All right, Face Dragon. This is a low sample size, and we usually struggle against aggro, so I just put it at 45-55 for now. But usually you want to keep Roach because of what we discussed earlier with Forte. May you keep with Fairy Generators, and you keep Ambush because deal 2 for 1 damage, or deal 4 for 1 damage sometimes. Pretty good. Aggro Abyss, same thing as the Face Dragon matchup. Keep Roach, keep May, keep Fairy Gen. Um, Roach is not here to prevent something like Forte. It's mainly to either force him to clear it if you have second Roach, or just to do some retaliation damage because you have to race them. So usually you have to play 2 Roaches in this matchup, just to win. Or you Roach Evo, swing, bounce the Roach back, right? That's also another option. But yeah, you're trying to race them, and you always take the line that prevents the most damage. Like almost always, like do not greed. You'll probably regret it if you like let them get the 1 trip damage in. All right, mid range abyss. I would assume it's aggro abyss, but if it's open deck, then you can keep God with staff, because you usually have time to play it. This match was pretty favored into the Gensetsu control variant. You can kind of play normally, set up an OTK, and then like try to lethal them before they Gensetsu, because if you let them Gensetsu, then they're gonna have 4 wards, and yeah, that can be annoying. So you try to lethal them before they can Gensetsu. But in the Serb Odin variant, you make sure you can manage your health properly because you won't always be able to full clear their board, especially with the zombies. The zombies can be really annoying. So yeah, just try to find lethal before they do. I don't know why my slides are not complete. Oh, I don't get it. Anyways, yep, just try to find lethal before they do. I've said. uh, if you fight Haven, I would assume it's Storm Haven because yeah, it's kind of impossible to win against War Haven. So against Storm Haven, just do a normal mulligan and keep Godwood staff, and then just follow the general game plan, and you should be fine. But yeah, if you run into a lot of War Haven, I would just not play the deck, unfortunately. All right, the portal matchups are pretty similar. You usually want to set up OTK. Um, in the artifact matchup, they will set up Realmia double ward, so be aware of that. And they will be super evil, so they will be 6 HP. So yeah, Carbuncle is not enough to kill a ward by itself. So just be aware of that, and try to set up your lethal around this so you can have like Bale, you can have an extra Karen so you can Karen the Carbuncle, make it 6 attack, And yeah, usually they have two of them. If they have one of them, usually you can just punch through and win. But yeah, uh, Puppet is similar, but usually you have to set up OTK. Oh, I don't know why it says alpha healing. I think I apologize. But yeah, it's not because of alpha healing. It's because obviously they don't have alpha, but they basically make it hard for you to deal trip damage because of how efficient puppets are. So you try again, you try force their evils if you can. Um, and you can lily the Lloyd if they Sivo it, or you can like bail carbuncle. There's a lot you can do to like Sivo Lloyd. But usually like puppets do a good enough job clearing your board that you can't force their evos as well. So you kind of have to end them before you get double Orchist. So usually you need to lethal them by turn 8 or 9. Yeah. But that's about it. Let's just go through some puzzles now. So this, I'll just leave it on screen. Um, I'm not sure if I should say the answers, so I'm just gonna go through these real quick. Actually, you know what? I will say the answers. Or you know what? I'll just give a hint. So you definitely want to carbuncle the Cairn. That's a really like common pattern. Carbuncle on Cairn. And then I'll let you guys figure out the rest. So this is a puzzle from my stream, like a while back. And yeah, you can lethal them here. And then this is another puzzle. I will leave it to you. If you have questions or if you really can't figure out the answer, feel free to comment and I will give you the answer in the comments. But yep, leave this on screen for a little while. And then, yep, that's it. Thank you for watching. We will now go to some gameplay. This guide is pretty long, so yeah, we will go through some gameplay. Probably only one game. But yeah, let's just get into that. Alright, so Mulligan, we're gonna full mull here. Because, I mean, if you just follow the sword slide, then yeah, we can follow that. Before we get into the game, if you catch this early, please consider checking out my stream, following, subscribing, liking, comment. I really appreciate it. Anyways, yeah, if you catch this early, I'm probably streaming right now, so feel free to check out the stream. Link down below. And yeah, let's just get into it. So our hand's not too great. So I'm just gonna convo here, set up some fairies, and pass. Yeah, we don't really have much to respond to this. So we could fairy here, but I think I just decide to pass because we can try fairy Cairn. And yeah, as you can see, I'm under a lot of pressure here. But we draw the Glade, so I decide not to coin. I decide, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna set up these fairies and pass. And next turn, I can Glade. I decide to burn the fairies because otherwise I will overdraw. So now we coin Glade. Clear the board. And as you can see, like, I'm not gonna overdraw because I burned both of the fairies, which is nice. And we sync face with the fairy. Okay, he sets up a board. That's really good because he left the Glade on board. So we can try find a way to like basically deal 5 damage per case. I think he probably had a way to remove this, but maybe he didn't, I don't know. Anyway, I decided to take the Lily route. So we're gonna Lily and then ambush. Yep. And then we can deal 6 to face. I just use Goblin, just has a combo starter there, which is fine. Goblin's like flexible, like I said. And it's not even that much worse than Fairy of the Pawn, because if I had Fairy of the Pawn, I would overdraw here, right? So I think it might be better than Fairy of the Pond in this scenario. Do we have lethal here? I think no, we don't. Yeah, we don't have a bounce, or we do have a bug alert, but it's kind of hard to lethal him here. So I believe I just go for clearing the Gildaria. So yeah, just remove the Gildaria, set up a Karen, and you only need one Sivo to lethal them with Carbuncle, right? So I decide to just Sivo the Tamer, remove the Gildaria, and of course have a pretty strong board. Also notice I don't care about burning a card here because we have lethal. We pretty much have lethal in hand. The bail's gonna go to 0. We have Bunko Bounce Karen as well. So we pretty much have lethal in hand. And we're doing this before he can Amalia. Before he can Amelia plus Magus, right? He also only has 1 Magus left. Yeah. Oh wait. Sorry. Kinda give you guys a start, but I should let you guys solve the lethal if you can. And then I'll play it out. So we do have lethal in hand here. So see if you guys can spot a lethal. I think there are multiple lethals here, possibly. But yeah, we're playing it out now. Gonna crash the fairies to play a fail here. It gives me board space. And it makes my Gale 0 cost, right? Gonna crash another fairy for extra damage. And then we play both the Roaches. And we could even pop Karen if we wanted to. Yeah, there's probably multiple lethals there. That's the one I found. I'm gonna end the video there because it's pretty long. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.